Welcome to No Flipping Excuses with Jason Lucchese. Jason Lucchese was the guy voted least likely to succeed by his high school peers. Today, Jason's a real estate flipping ninja Jedi Knight assassin who's taken his drive, street smarts, and never give up attitude and converted them into a real estate flipping business and freedom-based lifestyle. After years of being chained to a cubicle in the mortgage business, watching his coworkers go bust, customers go bankrupt, and his hairline go bye-bye, Jason decided to make a change and blaze his trail to the flipping promised land. Each episode, Jason shares real-life real estate case studies, tips on how to find, finance, and flip deals, and mindset tactics he uses every day as a real estate investor, mentor, and leader so you can free yourself from the shackles of corporate America, fire your boss, and live the life you've always dreamed of, right flipping now. Here to share the truth about flipping houses, finding sellers, delivering buyers, real estate investing without the reality show hype, and all-around general business badassery. Your host, Krav Maga enthusiast, husband, and father of 3, Jason Lucchese.
Hey there, what's up? It's Jason Lucchese with the No Flipping Excuses show. I am so excited that you're here with us, and I have a special guest for us today. But before I introduce you to her, I want to say a huge shout out to our current subscribers. You guys are getting access to these episodes first and foremost before anybody else does, so you are on top of it, my friend. And also, too, please leave us a 5-star review. If you love our show, love the episodes, and love the information that you're getting from each and every show, please do us a favor, leave us a 5-star review. And if you are a brand new individual listening to the No Flipping Excuses show, a huge welcome to you, and I look forward to hearing from you. You have tuned into a really great episode here. I've got my good friend that I met not too long ago. It's kind of crazy how we met. It's actually about podcasting. We met when we were trying to get our shows going, and this was a while back. And I had the privilege of meeting our guest, Pam Pryor, and we hit it off right off the bat. She's a great human being, great individual, great businesswoman. She knows what she's doing, which is awesome. She's been doing this for a long time. She's the chief financial officer guru that I like to refer her as. But Pam's just been really great. Loved that we were able to meet with each other in the Chicagoland area, and we just hit it off. And this has been really a long overdue episode of getting Pam on the show. But without further ado, Pam Pryor, how are you doing, my friend?
Oh my gosh, so good, Jason, and it's great to talk to you and see you again. I get to see you during this, which is fantastic.
I know, right? We're always going back and forth on each other's Facebook pages, hitting likes, comments here and there. But it's good to stay in touch. I see you're doing a lot of amazing things, and for folks that don't know you like I do, Pam, why don't you give a little bit of a brief history of yourself and, what kind of business do you run?
Sure thing. Well, first of all, I want to thank you so much for having me on the show today. I have been following you since we met, as you know, and I'm one of your biggest fans. I think what you do is fantastic. And since I'm financial based, I have even more credibility for it, because one of the things that a lot of people just don't know is how to build and take care of wealth. And you give them in just plain English. That's what I love about your book and love about what you're doing here. So I just appreciate the chance to talk to you and your fan base a little bit about the financial side of things. So to put a little background on it, for me, I am the author of a book titled Your First CFO, which is also called The Accounting Cure for Small Business Owners. So I am a CFO out of large industry. So I worked for companies from kind of Fortune 50 down to pre-startup companies as well, and just really got fired up about how much fun it is to work with entrepreneurs, but more importantly, how much they're underserved by the bookkeeping and accounting options that are out there for them. And it's become such a hassle or a thing that people ignore. And I just want to put the fire and fun back into finance, because it really can be something that can be the best friend to a small business owner. And I think a lot of people are missing out on that. So I want to really get the word out to as many people as I can that it's such an important part of real businesses, and that's what your fan base is made up of, and that it's not all that awful to put in place.
No, that's true. And you know what? When I first got started as a entrepreneur, business owner, I was scared to death of really kind of getting started. And I know you and I talked offline before we got the show going. And most of the individuals that, listen to the No Flipping Excuses show are either brand new to investing or they've been doing this for a long period of time. And the thing that a lot of folks come across, even in, myself to a certain extent, is what do I need to do come tax season? Because we are doing this episode right around tax season. And most folks probably didn't get themselves prepared at the end of quarter four. And actually, you should be preparing throughout the whole entire year. Every single month, you should have a breakdown of allocations and all that kind of good stuff. And I love the fact that you actually are having your book released about this. So this is great. But for folks that are listening right now, Pam, what would you recommend? Like it's tax season's here. Where a lot of folks, they're probably scared, like, oh man, I don't have that money available. Like what do you encourage and recommend around this time of the year?
Yeah, so the first thing I'd recommend, quite honestly, is that right now what we should be talking about with each one of your people, what each one of your people should be doing, or your fans, your family, you, everybody, should actually be planning for 2018 tax crisis.
Yeah. Rather
than dealing with the 2017 tax crisis. So what I do with a lot of my existing clients is we are already in the first meeting of the year to figure out what our tax bill at the end of 2018 is going to be. And there are a few things that you can do when you have that level of insight into your business numbers, because you can make sure there is no tax surprise. And that's really the ultimate goal, right?
Yep.
So that's the fantasy. That's what, but it is what we can put in place very easily for every single business owner. What's important, if that's not there, is the tactics to deal with, what do I do now about 2017? I didn't plan it. All of a sudden, I have a tax bill facing me. I have no idea if I could reduce it, if I can do a payment plan. And so what I really try to do, or what I recommend, is a lot of people, including me, start their businesses with a box of receipts, right? Okay. And at the end of the year, they go, oh my gosh, I made some money. And I think I've heard something about being able to deduct expenses against that money and reduce my tax bill. Yay, that's great. But they look at that box of receipts and they're paralyzed by it, right? Like I've seen pictures of them. I've had clients with them and they're just coming out the edges and they're all sorts of wacky order. So the first thing I would recommend, and this actually speaks to preparing for next year as well, is get yourself an app. There are so many really good apps out there for scanning. And as hard as it is, anything that you think might be a tax expense. So you go out to lunch with your brother and you talk about your business. You take a drive to see a property and you want to keep track of the mileage. There are really good apps out there for capturing images of that invoice. That's all you have to do, just capture the image. And if you know anything quick about it right now, you can write a little note in the field and then you never have to worry about it again. You can throw it away. There's a misnomer, or there's a misbelief out there that you have to keep original receipts, and then anymore that's just not true, with some very rare exceptions. Yeah. Wow. If you have a scan of it, that's just as good, as long as it's a clear and readable scan and you can see your signature on it. If it's like a restaurant receipt, you're in good shape.
Oh wow, that's perfect.
So that's
something new I didn't know.
There you go. So that's kind of, again, future looking. But looking at that box of receipts right now, the best advice I can give you if you're in business is get a VA if you can't stand to do it yourself, and just have them key that stuff into a spreadsheet. And there are some major categories of tax deductions that you can get. And you ought to be paying attention to any receipts for meals and dining, right? Because you can, if you're in business like one of us, and I will say right here, I'm a CPA, but I don't practice taxes because I don't like them. So I'm not a tax practitioner. So this is not official tax practitioner advice or legal advice. This is if I were your CFO, what might I be telling you? Advice. And I would say to you that when you're a business owner, pretty much every breath you take is about your business. So if you're spending money, you instead of making the assumption that it's not a business deduction and then prove that it is, do it the other way around. Anytime you spend money, keep track of it and assume that it's a business expense. And then later on, when we get down the road, let the tax accountant say, no, that's really not deductible. So that's the best way that I tell my folks to look at it, is keep all those receipts right now. If you're going to Starbucks and getting a coffee, keep track of it, because you may see somebody while you're walking and have a conversation about your business. You may look to your left in your case and see a property you might want to do something with. So make the assumption that everything's deductible. Get a scanner and scan it. Like I use Genius Scan right on my phone.
Oh, that's cool.
There are a number of others that are made specifically once you get into more complicated accounting systems and bookkeeping systems. Like QuickBooks has its own scanner. But worst case, just use Genius scan them in, make a note about them. And you'll have everything you need this time next year to be all set for that. But again, if you're stuck in this year, just hand that stuff to a VA and say, type this all into a spreadsheet, hand that spreadsheet to somebody who knows how to do taxes. Or quite honestly, some of the tax packages now, if folks aren't quite in a position to hire an accountant, a lot of these tax packages are really easy to work through. And just go in and just take the quizzes that they walk you through. And then you'll find it'll prompt you for all the expenses that should count. And then you can just make sure you pick those up off your spreadsheet. But it's much easier to work off a spreadsheet than it is to work out of a receipt box.
That makes so much more sense. And the other thing too is if you're buying like an app on the App Store for doing this, that is a write-off too, correct?
Yes, it is.
You'll be amazed how many items that you could actually write off on your taxes to lower that threshold of how much you would have to owe. So that's pretty amazing.
It's so true. And you actually make a really good point. A lot of people forget about subscriptions that they've bought that don't renew for a year. I know you can get onto your Apple account and see all the subscriptions you have active. Yep. So you ought to do that to make sure you don't forget anything. Pull your credit card bills, take a look at them. So if you're showing net income at the end of the year, when you get to that tax, when you put your taxes in TurboTax or whatever tax product you buy, go back and look at some statements and see if you can't ratchet up a few more expenses.
That's right.
They're usually there and legitimately there. I'm not saying scam it at all. I would never recommend that. But I'm always surprised at how many more expenses I find than I think I have.
No, that's how it is for me too. And we mentioned something here. Well, you mentioned something earlier about VAs. And what we're going to do is we're going to come back here in just a moment. You want to stay involved with this conversation, my friends. We're going to talk about some virtual assistant stuff that you can use to really kind of streamline the process for you. We're going to hop into some additional chief financial officer topics that we're going to move into with Pam here and really discuss what we can do to really help you and your business as a small business owner. So stay tuned. We're going to be right back.
Have you been struggling to close your first real estate deal? I hear this all the time, and you're not the only person in the not having closed your first deal boat. I was there, and the feeling is horrible. I can tell you on page 103 of my book, Right Flipping Now, I address how you can easily overcome closing your first deal quickly and easily without using any of your own money or credit. My first deal closed when I was on vacation. I made $26,000. You can do the same thing. Grab a copy of my book at getmyflippingbook.com and you can get your first deal closed for massive profits. I have copies of my book available at getmyflippingbook.com, and you can have a step-by-step plan for making profits on your first deal closing within the next 30 to 60 days. Go to getmyflippingbook.com. That's getmyflippingbook.com. www.getmyflippingbook.com.
Hey there, welcome back to the No Flipping Excuses show. I am joined by my good friend, Pam Pryor, and we've been going over some awesome stuff as far as making sure that you're able to deduct taxes or expenses from your taxes and getting yourself in a position to where you could lower your amount that you would have to pay to the good old IRS. We're doing this in a way to where it's your money. There's a lot of different things that you can be doing right here, right now, so that you could be getting the expenses that you deserved and writing them off. So we left the last part there, that last section with Pam before we took a break, and we were talking about virtual assistants. Now, Pam, one of the services that we use is Upwork.com. What's a good service that you would recommend for folks that do have that shoebox full of receipts? Like what would you recommend? I know you recommended a scan app that folks can use, but do you have a certain VA service?
I do. I have used for a long time and really like Priority VA.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a more expensive VA service. So there's some upfront fee, and then you pay a minimum number of hours a month.
Okay.
But once you know you have that much in work, you get a one VA assigned to you, and they really get to know you at the same kind of level you would have if you were out trying to find your own individual VA who really clicked with you. So they go through a whole profiling process of both their VAs and your needs, and get exactly the right talent and culture fit. So that's who I've used historically.
No, that's awesome. Now, are most of these people US based, or are they worldwide?
Yeah. They are, I think, 100% US based.
Oh, wow. So much different.
Mine was in
Upwork.
Florida.
Oh, wow. So yeah, that's probably why. It is going to be a little bit more to get somebody
expensive
here in the States, but hey, it's worth it, for the folks out there that are diehards that want to keep, their money in the United States and pay other people. I'm totally cool with that. But there are some folks out there on Upwork that do a really great job. But this is something that we're going to be looking into ourselves because Mike and I, which everybody knows Mike as the Myth, we get phone calls from people and they're like, "Oh, you're Mike, you're the Myth," that's good old Mike here. So we're gonna have to look at PriorityVA.com and start looking at that too, because we use a ton of VAs in our business. So that's a huge help that they do, and it's totally worth it. Like Pam, I'm the type of person, I know this is going a little off track, but I'm the type of person, like, if there's something in my business that I absolutely hate doing, or even remotely come to that place, I say outsource it. Outsource it, outsource it, outsource it. What would you say to that?
I absolutely agree. And I've gotten to agree with that more and more as I've really dived into being an entrepreneur over the last 2 years, because it's so important to recognize the value of your time.
Oh, yeah.
We only, like today, I looked up today and went, oh my God, it's 3:00. I felt like I'd been working for 2 hours, and here it was 3:00 in the afternoon. So there's nothing more valuable than our time. So, it was actually another one of our participants at the same class you and I were in, Jason, was because there were two Jasons.
Yeah.
And he said to me, what I do every year is I sit down and look at all the activities I worked on. And I put them in 3 columns. One is, I love doing this. I'm fired up when I see it on my calendar. I can't wait. The second one is, I'm really good at this. It's not my favorite thing, but I really am good at it. And that would be what I'd call my zone of excellence, right? You got your zone of genius, which is the first thing. Mm-hmm. I'm naming these. He didn't name them. Zone of excellence, which is the second. I'm pretty darn good at these, and it would be pretty hard to train somebody how to do it as well as I do.
Yeah.
And then there's that list of stuff you hate. And anything that's on that list of stuff you hate, and I bit the bullet and did that this year. I outsourced every bit of it.
Yep.
So I would do that review every quarter, kind of look back at your calendar and say, what did I love? What am I really pretty good at and don't hate? And what do I absolutely hate? But to go back to the VA thing, especially in terms of getting stuff ready for a tax provider, kind of at a crisis mode now, you probably really could just get anybody to put this stuff in a spreadsheet. Get a kid in college who's looking to make an extra couple bucks because it's very specific work.
Yeah.
When it comes to a VA, you really I think there's a time in your business when a lower cost VA makes a ton of sense. There's a time in business when it might make sense to pay a little more just to get somebody who starts to know how you think.
Yep.
And then you can save so much time in actual procedure giving back and forth. So that's kind of where I got to evolve to. The other thing I really wanted to mention on this is that a lot of people, because the tax issue is so scary and they get to it and go, oh my God, I'm going to have a tax bill. They put it off. They delay it. They don't file it. Here's what I'd say to that. Get the receipts in a spreadsheet and file your tax return. Pay what you can if it turns out you owe something, but there are payment plans available.
Yep.
It's so worth doing that because I've had with a couple clients that hadn't filed for a few years, and we went ahead and filed. If money was due, the penalties and the interest are debilitating.
Yeah,
they can put you out of business. Now, you can always pay for a good tax lawyer to fight with the IRS and negotiate a settlement for you and all that, but then you're paying for a lawyer as well.
Yeah.
And just pull the trigger, bite the bullet, file that tax return. If it looks like you have to pay a lot of money, pick an option for a payment option, and then get in touch with the IRS and say, look, I got cash flow problems. Let's negotiate this. And they will negotiate it. But you'd rather negotiate it at $100 than when it's all of a sudden $1,000 because you have 3 years of penalties and fees.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how quickly they add up. And often, from what I understand from people who've been in this situation, they will tend to give on the penalties, but they don't give on the interest.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Let me ask you this, Pam. What's your take on filing for extensions? Because my thing is I've done it before, and the individual that used to, and I use that term used to, work with me, is they didn't tell me that the whole time that the extension was going on that I was being charged the whole entire time, and the amount that was going to come was going to be when I actually filed, and then everything would go back to that April 15th date. If I didn't file, then I've got that whole window, because for small business owners, I believe it's September 15th, correct? And then if you're an individual, it's October 15th, right?
Yes, that's correct. And what you've said is just about exactly right, but I'm going to frame it a little bit differently.
Please do.
You can file for an extension, and if you do, you should file by whatever, March 15th or April 15th for an individual.
Yeah.
But you still have to pay what you think you're going to owe then, right? Or negotiate an agreement for what you think you're going to owe. And that's what a lot of people think. Oh, I'll just file an extension. And that sounds like what might have happened. They filed an extension for you, but didn't make an estimated tax payment on what you were going to owe.
No.
So given that, even though you filed the extension so you won't get in trouble for not filing, you definitely still get fines and interest for not having paid. So just filing the extension doesn't do it. You have to file the extension and pay anything you think you might owe. The neat thing about an extension is it gives you a little more time, right? So you may find over those next 6 months or so that either you don't owe as much as you thought, so you can get some money back, which is always cool, or maybe you're actually not in a net income position. So when you file that extension, no money's owed.
Yeah.
And it may be only a little bit's owed once you get all the way through it to the end, and then it won't be that big of a bill. So that's exactly right. The extension does not get you out of or delay when you have to pay.
No, that makes perfect sense here, and that that helps shed some light on folks there probably, because we get the question all the time, like, Jason, do you file extension, or what do you do around this time? So that makes complete sense to me, because a lot of things can change from the extension until, hey, this is when the taxes are due. Like, for us, maybe you might flip 2 or 3 properties that make you 20, 30 grand each. And now the taxes are, okay, I'm going to take care of them before the actual deadline, because you don't have to wait until the deadline to actually pay. If you want to pay it sooner, trust me, the IRS will be more than happy to take your money sooner. So
absolutely true. And there's no way to delay when it's due. The money is due by the 15th of April or March if you're a company, and that's all there is to it. No matter how many extensions you file, that money's still due March or April, and what you don't pay, they're gonna penalize you for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's often that is a real fallacy I think a lot of people have out there. So I'm really glad you brought it up, is thinking that extension pushes off when you have to pay, and it just doesn't do that.
Right. That's what I thought. I thought that was the way it was. Like, oh, I'll just file this extension, I'll be good to go. And next thing you know, I get my tax bill. I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, whoa, This is not fun. So yeah.
That's exactly right. And I'll take that up one step further too. And we were talking about in each of these segments, I really want to talk about planning for next year. Yeah. Because if you're looking at a 2018 that you know is going to be incredibly profitable, you actually need to start paying those taxes throughout the year, right? So say you're going to have $1 million in income at the end of the year. You're going to have somewhere around, and you're going to reduce expense, say your net income is going to be $500,000 just for interest's sake. Technically, you ought to be paying whatever you think your effective income tax rate is throughout the year, quarterly, because it's expecting you to make estimated payments, not get to the end of the year and say, oh, I owe the government $200,000. They want $50,000 a quarter. Yep. And that's why planning, the more successful you are, it's a great problem to have, because if you're having this conversation, you've got a really successful business. So number one, be proud of yourself because you've got a really successful business. But number two, you need to start dealing with it, or it's going to cost you every bit of money you ever made.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I would agree with you, because those penalties and the interest are they're awful. So it's really, really difficult. And one of the things I want to discuss with you here coming up is, really what does it take for somebody to just let go and have somebody be their CFO? Because let's face it, I am not the type of person that does the stuff that a CFO does. I don't want to do that. So let's talk about that here in just a second. You're not going to want to miss this. We're going to talk about some stuff here that's crucial for your business. So Pam and I will be right back, my friend.
I hear from real estate investors how much of a challenge it is finding motivated sellers. This is happening all over the country. Real estate investors not knowing where their next deal will come from. I can tell you on page 141 of my book, Right Flipping Now, I address how you can easily find deeply discounted off-market deals. The 98% of investors out there don't have a clue about this. You can easily duplicate this process within your own business today. Grab a copy of my book now at getmyflippingbook.com, and you can start finding deals for 50, 40, and 30 cents on the dollar without any competition. I have copies of my book available right now at getmyflippingbook.com, and you can have a step-by-step plan for making profits within the next 30 to 60 days. Go to getmyflippingbook.com. That's getmyflippingbook.com. It's www.getmyflippingbook.com.
Hey there, welcome back to the No Flipping Excuses show. I am joined by my good friend Pam Pryor, and we've been discussing what most people don't want to discuss, and that's taxes. But I will tell you this, we're discussing taxes in a good way so that you can save yourself, your hard-earned dollars. And what we just left with here before we took a quick break was to really talk about the differences that you should be having right now within your business. And Pam and I were able to talk briefly here about that, the different types of positions of individuals that you can have come into your business and work for you right now. Now, if you're just getting started, you haven't closed your first deal yet, you haven't made any money yet, then you're going to have to do this stuff by yourself. So listening to this particular episode, this is going to help you out quite a bit, because once you start scaling, because it's not too hard, once you get your first 5 deals done and you're starting to make some money, then I would recommend, doing the stuff that we are encouraging you on this episode. So Pam, with that being said, I know when we just took a break for a second, you were talking about the different roles as like a bookkeeper, a CPA, a CFO, all those things. How would you structure all of this, moving into anyone's business for that to say?
Yeah, I think you actually put it really well, and I love the way you said that. Like, if you're flipping your first deal, or you're turning your first deal, what you want to do is just make sure you keep track of your receipts.
Yeah.
Like I said a little bit earlier, make sure you keep track of everything and then rule out what might not be a business expense later. Keep them in a box or scan them, even better. What you then can probably do at that level is just file your own tax return via TurboTax or something. There's no reason to add cost and expense to get bookkeepers, accountants, CFOs, anything.
Right.
Just make sure you do it, and don't forget to file those taxes by the due date. The products now for filing taxes are very user-friendly. You don't have to be a tax accountant for it. They walk you through a set of questions that make it so easy to get it done. So if you're still brand new in this space, that's the advice I have for you. Don't lose your receipts. Get them on a spreadsheet or scan them, and then buy TurboTax or H&R Block or something like that to do it yourself. Once you start to get to where you have 5 deals and you're starting to make some money and reinvest it and all of these things, you probably have elevated to the point where you need what we'll call a bookkeeper. And that can be you if you want it to be you. Most entrepreneurs don't want it to be them, which is great for people like me and for bookkeepers out there. But you want to have a bookkeeper. And here's the thing you really want to make sure of. When you get a bookkeeper for the first time, you want to make sure that they're prepared, yes, to get your books ready for a tax accountant. But at this point, you're going to succeed in this business and it's going to grow. Make sure it's a bookkeeper who also knows how to give you management reports, who can give you a dashboard so that you can actually say, wow, this information's really useful to me and I can use it in my business. Because here's what happens a lot of times, and I'd like to prevent for you and your audience, is you get a bookkeeper and the bookkeeper is set up to just, you're so annoyed with the whole tax thing that you say to the bookkeeper, hey, will you just get this damn thing ready so that my tax account, sorry, I shouldn't have cussed
no,
on
you're
your
fine.
podcast, but get this ready for my tax accountant and I never want to see it again. Just make it happen.
Yeah.
And there's so much frustration that gets set up. And that's good for the first year or so because you're out of it then. You just send them the receipts and they handle everything.
Right.
But they're handling it exactly for the tax accountant, which is, again, fine, but all that's going to get you is your tax returns done effectively. What you really want to do is make sure that bookkeeper knows you want management reporting. So we've got the bookkeeper, we've got the tax accountant now when you're this size. You probably want to be doing that. Have somebody else file your taxes, make sure you're asking all the questions you should, make sure you're saving all the receipts you should, and reporting it in all the right ways. When you get to the point where your business is significant and you've got some wealth built up in it, that's when you really should be talking to a CFO, because a CFO does a lot more than taxes. The CFO is watching out and making sure that as you invest and increase your expectations for return on that investment, that everything about your finances is protected and is being leveraged at the best that it can. So, for example, they'll make sure you have the right tax accountant, sure, but they'll also make sure you've got the right insurances. They may be able to get deals with brokers on insurances. They'll be able to look at those management reports we were just talking about that you're going to have your bookkeeper keep for you, and start to identify, again, in advance, hey, Jason, we're heading for a lot of profit this year. Is there anything you need to tell me about what you think that number is going to be by the end of the year, and let's start some tax planning about that. And once you're at that level, there are tons of different things you can do. And I'm not even going to go into the detail because everybody would nod off, including myself. But once you're making some real money, you want to have somebody to talk to, even if it's a financial planner and your tax accountant. It doesn't have to be a CFO, but a CFO, or the way I do CFO work for my clients, is I quarterback that whole team. So I kind of say, look, this is my client or my owner or my CEO, and I want to make sure he or she's got everything they need related to the financial world. So we cover banking, we cover treasury, we cover insurance, we cover what you need to know about forecasting and budgeting. If you want to expand your business into other areas, if you want to acquire other businesses, that's when you really get into the need for a CFO.
No, that's ideal that you bring that up like that. Let me ask you this. What is a good approach for finding a good CFO, somebody that can really, be that person that you could depend on, because not everybody is built the same?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that question. So one thing you want to make absolutely sure of, especially if you're talking to somebody who's come out of a big company, is that they've worked with, or at least very clearly understand what it's like in an entrepreneur's world.
Yep.
And by that, there are two major things you want to make sure you get. One is that they speak your language. Okay, so they're not using industry jargon or accounting jargon. They're talking your language. They have bothered to learn enough about your industry and what you do to be able to talk about it in your language. So that's thing number one.
Yep.
The second is chemistry. And I know that sounds crazy, but this is going to be a person that's going to have access to and know about some of your deepest and most personal stuff, because it's your money. So they're going to know where it's invested. They're going to know how you emotionally feel about money. They're going to know how to talk to you about money. You need to make sure, number one, that you can trust them, and number one, that the chemistry is such that they understand what you need and want and make sure things are set up to support that, but they're skilled enough, smart enough to know when to say to you, hey, time out. We have to do this differently now. Mm-hmm. I just had to do this with a client this weekend. You're a big company now. We have to start putting some of these things in place that make you cringe. So how do we put these in place without making you cringe? You have a staff of 22 now. You can't manage a staff of 22 by yourself. And you really want that kind of chemistry. So a CFO role, especially a part-time CFO role, can only be successful if that person truly and fully wants your success as much as they want your own.
Yeah.
I passionately believe that, and there are not enough of us out there. And every time I find one, I will recommend them. So I have a very limited list of one-on-one clients because I only take as many as I can handle.
Right.
But if you or any of your listeners are in need of that level of support, let me know, because I have a great network. It's not a referral fee or anything network. It's just I know who does this well, and I'm glad to recommend them.
No, that's great. And I know this right now that there's probably somebody listening to this, and they're probably thinking the same exact thing, just because I don't know if it's just me or if it's other people as well, but normally when it comes to, divulging information like, how much you make and, where do you spend your money? Like, do you have people sign like certain confidentiality agreements, or do you just go into it and, trust them right off the bat? Because I know I've been burned in the past, even with business partners. So what kind of things do you do to kind of give yourself a little bit of protection?
Yeah, so as an entrepreneur, what I would recommend, I'm glad you brought that up, because any CFO you bring in and any bookkeeper you bring in should be bonded. And what that means is their insurance is set up such that if you get ripped off by them, their insurance is going to kick in when they bail and run. So
yeah.
They're going to have access to your money. They're going to be able to see your money. They're going to know all your secrets. You definitely want to make sure they're bonded. But second to that, I would get an NDA, which is basically a non-disclosure agreement, and have them sign it that says, I am not going to ever tell anybody anything I learn about your personal financial situation. There's a lot more legalese to that.
Right.
That said, a contract like that is a piece of paper, And if this person ran off tomorrow and started a podcast and started bad-mouthing you on the internet or saying what awful spending habits you had or whatever it might be, you're not going to stop them with a piece of paper. So I'm going to circle back to make sure it's somebody you either know firsthand you can trust or that's been referred to you by someone you trust implicitly. They're just like in your business, in the marketing business, in my business, there are shysters.
Oh yeah.
And they're sometimes they're very good, and they can really project a real image of confidence. And I've bailed more than one now, unfortunately, more than one-on-one client out of the after effects of something like that. And I wish it didn't happen. I wish I could, personally assassinate everybody in my profession who does that.
Right.
But they're out there, and you just have to, like anything else you're going to spend real money on, especially if they're going to have a real insight into your personal life.
Yeah, it just goes to show, Pam, referrals. It's just the way to go. If you don't know an individual personally, like I'm big on referrals. I always ask, like the answer is always going to be no unless you ask the question. So I'd rather have somebody tell me no than, me just assume that it's going to be a no. So you never know who people know. Like we've got this big sphere of influence of people that we know on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, all these different social media platforms out there, Pam. And there's so many different ways out there to just go out there and protect yourself and not have to worry about somebody coming in and be a shyster, like you said. So no, I completely agree. And what we're going to do here is we're going to come up in just a second. We're going to ask Pam some hot seat questions, and we're going to go ahead and talk about some additional top tips you need for your real estate investing business. So stay tuned. You're going to want to stay with us when we continue the conversation in just a second. Be right back.
Are you facing a roadblock with getting started in real estate? This is an obstacle a lot of brand new investors face. Building a rock-solid foundation is key to building your investing empire. I can tell you on page 95 of my book, Right Flipping Now, I address how you can build a lasting foundation that won't topple over when you're on the third floor. Do not avoid laying the proper foundation for your business. I've made this drop-dead simple for you to just rip off and use within your own real estate investing business. Grab a copy of my book now at getmyflippingbook.com, and you can have the confidence you need to find and flip deals consistently month after month. I have copies of my book available at getmyflippingbook.com, and you can have a step-by-step proven plan for making profits on your very first deal, or maybe that second deal, closing within the next 30 to 60 days. Go to getmyflippingbook.com. Getmyflippingbook.com.
Hey there, it's Jason Lucchese, and welcome back to the No Flipping Excuses show. I've been joined by my good friend Pam Pryor, and we've been discussing all things that have to do with your business, how to make a better business, how to make sure that you are paying the lowest amount of taxes per year. We've been covering some amazing things. I'm glad Pam has been a guest on the show, and we are in the point where we're going to have Pam in the hot seat right now and ask her some really cool questions. So, Pam, are you ready for the No Flipping Excuses hot seat?
I think so.
So, Pam, first question. What is your favorite all-time book?
Okay. This is a tough one because I love to read nonfiction, so it's definitely not going to be a fiction book. And believe it or not, my favorite book is a book about Thomas Jefferson, and it's called Thomas Jefferson, The Art of Power. And it's by John Meacham. It's Jon, John Meacham, and it was written in 2012. I like this book for so many reasons, but primarily I really did like having insight into what it was like to live back in the 1700s as they did. Yeah. And it really lets you touch on that. But most importantly, he carried a message, and he got a message out, and it talked about how he did that. And everything he did, except for the mechanics of getting the message out, is exactly what we still do today. So it was he had to influence a lot of people to think particular ways, and he found ways to do it. And I really got a lot out of this book, both from the history, but also how it informs how we do business today and politics today, fortunately or unfortunately.
No, that's awesome. And how about your 2017 favorite top book? What would you say was that for that whole year? Did you have one in mind?
I actually do. And it's funny, I have it right in front of me. And it's by a gentleman by the name of Steve Sims, who's in a mastermind group with me, the Archangel Mastermind. But he specializes in making things happen. So he's the guy who, if somebody wants to go backstage to an Elton John concert, instead of getting him tickets backstage to the Elton John concert, he gets him 15 minutes on stage singing with Elton John.
Wow.
And just example after example after example of stuff like that. And he talks about, in his book called Blue Fishing, how anybody can do that. And it's really not, he's saying, look, there's nothing special about me. He started out as a laborer for his dad, and he ended up building this amazing business that
awesome.
Takes people on amazing journeys. So yeah, that's a great book. Blue Fishing would be my pick.
Very cool. I'm gonna have to check that one out.
Yeah, you'd love the read.
No, that'd be cool. That sounds like a good one. So two questions left. What do you think for your 2018 outcome? Your state of the market?
That's a really timely question right now, and it's one of the discussions that are coming up in a number of places that I'm hanging out, and it's around Facebook and advertising. I don't know to what extent your fan base and listeners use Facebook advertising, but it's really changing right now, and everybody's probably noticed it's getting more expensive. But more than it's getting more expensive is it's getting really crowded. And what's happened is a lot of the big players now, the really big players, are advertising in that space. And they're jacking the rates up, and they're adding so much volume in advertising that it's getting very difficult to be heard around all the noise. So interestingly, and this is really still pretty fresh for me, so I have about 3 months worth of results, but not any more than that. A very good friend of mine is working on YouTube and has really found incredible success rates, like things like 2 and 3 times the number of leads at half the cost of Facebook.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so that's something I'm going to be exploring for myself, is really reaching out into the YouTube market, because it seems to be where things are going.
That's interesting. I've always been a big fan of YouTube, and that makes complete sense, just because they've got everything backed up with Google too, so that analytics and all that good stuff is all readily available. So I love that. That definitely makes a lot of sense. So last part here is why don't we talk about, I believe we have, Mike, we always ask the question with this particular hot seat question is, what would be your top tip for somebody that is just getting started as an entrepreneur?
That is a great question. And it's the same tip I have for my $10 and $20 million clients. And it's trust your gut. And the reason I say that is, if you've got the determination, drive, and smarts to start your own business, then you probably intuitively know a lot more about your numbers than you think you do. You may talk about it differently than an accountant might talk about it. You may think about it differently than a bookkeeper might think about it, but you've got the same tool set. So the big thing I would say there is trust your gut. And when you talk to anybody, most notably a potential bookkeeper or CFO or something like that, make sure that you talk to them in a way that lets you test your gut instincts. And if you hear either something that's too good to be true, it probably is. And if you hear something that sounds like utter crap to you, there I go cussing again.
No,
it probably is. And
trust me, we've had people say much worse things than you have.
Good deal. So that's what I say. Trust your gut. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And if it sounds like somebody's feeding you a line of crap, they probably are. And for every single entrepreneur I've ever met, I've found that to be true. And you are a smarter accountant than you think. You just say it in a different language.
No, I hear you. And Pam, you have a book that is available. What is that book? What's it about? How is it going to be able to help individuals that want to go out there and take advantage of this book?
Oh, thank you so much. I do. I have a book called Your First CFO, The Accounting Cure for Small Business Owners. And the whole point of this book is to put accounting and bookkeeping in entrepreneurs' language. It's a very easy read. It's a very quick read, but it basically says to an entrepreneur, here are the few things you need to know, and here's how you can ask for them. And that's what we packed into this little thrilling novel. I should have said that was my best read of 2017.
That's too funny. No, I can't wait to get my copy. So where can they go and get a copy of your book, Pam?
Great. So it is right now on pre-order on Amazon, and the publisher has determined that my launch date is actually going to be on my birthday, March 16th, that it'll be into bookstores. So we're very excited about that. And it'll be in bookstores everywhere, Barnes and Nobles and small type bookstores as well. So you can look for it there. Oh, awesome. In the meantime, you can find it online for pre-order, and then it'll be regular order on Amazon after March 16th.
Nice. Absolutely love it. So folks, go ahead, check out Pam Pryor's book on Amazon.com right now. You could go ahead and pre-order it and get yourself a copy, because you do not want to miss out on the tips, the secrets, everything that Pam has completely in this book. I've talked with Pam. She is a very smart woman, and the things that I'm sure she put in this book are very, very amazing. So with that said, if you guys need anything from us whatsoever, feel free to reach out. Our phone number is 317-900-1307. You could reach out to us by email too, which is support@jasonluchesi.com, and that last part is JASONLUCCHESI.com. So support@jasonluchesi.com. And if you are a returning subscriber, thank you. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review. It will be extremely helpful, and I will promise, if I see you, I will take you out for a Dairy Queen if you can do that for me. If you are a first-time listener, make sure you subscribe. Same thing goes for you too. Leave us a 5-star review, and I will treat you to Dairy Queen. And yes, I'll probably bring Mike the Myth with me. So with that being said, Pam, do you have any final words?
I don't. Thank you so much for letting me join you. Yes, I do. I guess I should say I do. Thanks so much for asking me to join you. I've really, really enjoyed talking with you, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us, Pam. It's been a pleasure. Make sure you guys go check out Pam's podcast as well. We'll have that in the show links as well. Pam's got a phenomenal podcast as well, so we'll make sure to include that in the show notes for you. But other than that, thanks for being here, my friend, and I will talk to you soon. See you on the next No Flipping Excuses podcast episode.
Thanks for listening. For show notes and links to anything discussed on today's program, visit noflippingexcuses.com. If you'd like to call the show, dial 317-900-1307, 24/7. Leave a message with your first name and where you're calling from, and include your question, comment, or concern. Who knows? You might end up on the air with Jason Lucchesi. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher. The links are posted at noflippingexcuses.com. Remember, you can close more deals now, make your own rules, and design and live an amazing life without having some jerk-off boss tell you what to do. Share noflippingexcuses.com with like-minded people you know who are ready for badassery, crushing it in real estate, and enjoying freedom to whatever you like, whenever you like it.